Hello tanks and tankettes, welcome to Patreon Supporter Spotlight number 10, and it's a slightly slipped down one, or indeed a stripped down one, as I'm just knee deep in World of Warships at the moment, so it's still going to be a reasonably long video. I think we've got about 20 odd minutes of both World of Tanks and World of Warships content, if you're not fed up of Warships already. But yeah, they're both pretty good games, and we're kicking it off with tanks. So if you're just here for the tanks, you can watch this one and then go away, I suppose. This is Island Man 224, who you should be reasonably familiar with, and he is in the FV4202 as his platoon mate there, Luftwaffe, and they've also got a third British tank with them, Fluid Lone Knight, in the 215B there. This is actually 9.4 replay, by the way, so if it seems a little jerky at times, it's because this is the last patch where I used Gnomefathers, and Gnomefathers, when you're just playing, it's fine. You'll notice the kind of the jerking around a bit when you're playing, as it has to load in the files, because it's not a particularly well optimized mod. It's a nice mod, but yeah, it can cause problems, and when you're doing replays, having to repeatedly play the same replay so that it's got all the relevant gun sounds loaded into memory is a bit problematic. And it's just part of the nature of this game that sound mods are, I think, quite hard to optimize, and because this game relies a lot on I think loading things into RAM, but I'm not sure. Not so much this Kerbal Space Program, though. That loads basically everything into RAM. Which is why, I mean, I do want to do KSP at some point. I know this is a complete tangent, but the 64-bit Windows client is, yeah, they kind of gave up on it, and it's now awaiting upgrade to Unity 5 or something like that. So, yeah, anyway, but that's the problem with KSP. It loads everything into memory, and therefore when it runs out of memory, everything just crashes. And that includes things like mods. So KSP with mods is fun, but also crashes a lot. Anyway, that's the first kill. And as you can see, well, this is not ideal. I mean, it's good matchmaking. There is a tier 10 arty, but these FVs don't have a huge amount of armor. They do, however, have very good on-the-move gun handling. And that's going to be very useful for making some of these shots. Now, I think Island Man was trying for a axle tracking shot there, because these guys are basically coming around sideways. They didn't quite manage it then, but he will with some later shots. They've also got a T-32 over there who's just about hanging on, so they potentially have some crossfire, and that's useful. That's his tracks eating yet more shots. But the enemy 121 decides, you know, correctly, I think, that the smart move is take out the T-32. Don't be just bottled up by those guys. Take charge of the engagement, and therefore enable these heavies to push around. Except they're just coming around showing their sides, and look at this. Now that was probably Fluid Lone Knight that tracked the guy, and the ST-1 already got tracked and took a boatload of damage, so these guys are just getting absolutely wrecked. Look at this. I think that E-100 only got off, what, 1-2 shots during that entire engagement and just got wrecked. And the ST-1's not doing too much better. Meanwhile, the T-32 has died, and there's a T-49 that's there as well, but he looks like he's going to make a getaway, so let's not worry about him. Island Man manages a very rare bounce. He's already eaten a couple of shots in his tracks, but that kind of turret bounce, yeah, you don't see that very often, and it's just because it was basically at an auto bounce angle. Now, he maybe could have gotten a tracking shot on the 121 there, but slight moment of hesitation. But the 121 backs out, and boom, there we go. Although it's actually Luftwaffe that gets the kill. Meanwhile, T-34 even just pops around the corner and casually blaps Luftwaffe in the side, but he's got a long reload and a soft hull and 3 tier 10 British guns. He's not going to get a chance to fire his gun again. He absolutely isn't. So they just absolutely wreck him. So we are just about 5.5 minutes into this game, and literally everyone else is dead apart from a single IS-3. And this is where things get a little bit interesting. Now, Island Man's already done over 3,000 damage. I would be happy with that in any tier 10 game, but we're not done yet. If we want to win this, and half the enemy team is dead, I mean, the push up the one line that occurred, you know, it wasn't a total failure in that they did wreck a bunch of enemy tanks. So this side, although they're not alone over here, it's actually not that bad. So I'm guessing they're coordinated on TeamSpeak. Iron Man's gone back, and it's close enough that the relative low speed of this thing wasn't that much of a hindrance. And Fluid Load Knight and Luftwaffe are dealing with the remaining enemy tanks on this side, along with the IS-3. Although the IS-3 doesn't really do a lot of damage, but he hangs on, he's still alive, and sometimes that alone can be useful. You can make use of that. So there's still something in the cap, and as you are probably aware, there are a bunch of rocks in the cap circle. And oh, there we go, Tiger 2, nice, low health. That's one less thing to worry about. So it's probably the T-44, because the Lerva is slow enough that he's probably still getting here. And as you can see, oh, Luftwaffe not looking so healthy anymore. There's also an Object 140 there, and they look like they're actually going for Luftwaffe, and unfortunately the 140 gets him, but Island Man gets that T-49 in the process. Now, we're over halfway on the cap marker, and Island Man obviously thinking of going back to help, but probably being frantically shouted at in TeamSpeak, go and decap! And you really don't want to let it get too close, because, look at this, 40 kilometers an hour. And this is as good as it gets with the tier 8 and up British medium tanks. And it'll be nice to get the Centurion Action X. At least I think that's the one we're still getting. I think the Chieftain was slated to appear on the heavy line, and now it looks like it's going to be possibly some kind of super conqueror, maybe. We'll see how that transpires. But he gets the decap on the T-44 and decides to just concentrate on wrecking this guy. Now, he is giving his sight to the Lerva, but the Lerva would be able to pen him lower front plate-wise anyway. Gets shot in the axle, which is exactly what he was doing to enemy tanks earlier. But the good news is this Lerva is very low health. And he's tracked the guy who's trying to back down, and he actually probably could have just put a Hesh shell into the turret. But, yeah, it doesn't matter. I mean, he's probably going to be okay. He might take a little bit more damage, but honestly, all that's left on the enemy team at this point, because we've cleared out the 1-2 line, and he does actually get a bounce there, is the enemy T-92. So, yes. Between them, well, Island Man's just had his 9th kill, Luftwaffe had 1 kill, and Fluid Load Knight had 2. So that's 11 kills. 1 more, and that's a crucial contribution. And if Island Man gets the T-92, it'll be a pools with a crucial contribution. How often do you see that kind of combo? Anyway, that looks like the IS-3 that whacks the T-92, who just given up on life. And Island Man does indeed get the last kill, so look at that. That was a heck of a result. That was quite intense. Ace Mastery, Pools Medal, Defender, Top Gun, High Caliber, and Brothers in Arms. So, yeah. Or was it Crucial? No, Crucial Contribution, I think. Or is that 3 each? No, Brothers in Arms is 3 each. I'm confused. It's one of the 2. Anyway, it was 5 medals. It was impressive. Over 5,000 damage done, 1,300 base XP. Yeah, that was pretty good. And Fluid Load Knight there, 2nd place. And Luftwaffe in 3rd. So that was a pretty good platoon carry, although some of the other members of the team did alright as well. The E-100, in fact, had a reasonable amount of damage, considering. But still, yeah, a heck of a fight. Next up, we have some destroyer action in World of Warships. If you weren't sick of that already, well, here's some more. This is Yachty. We've had him on before. In fact, we've had some of his Warships gameplay on before, and he's actually bottom tier here. He's in a tier 4 destroyer in a tier 6 game, although it's actually mostly tier 4s and tier 5s, so I don't think there were that many tier 6s. This is domination game mode, and it's the game's given them 3 cap points. It can randomize a bit, and sometimes you get different numbers. But in this case, well, in most cases in domination, what you do in your destroyer is you go and you cap, and usually that means tangling with other destroyers. And the Americans are particularly well suited for that because at the lower tiers, in fact across all tiers, they have very rapid firing guns, but more crucially, very rapidly turning turrets. And that means you can maneuver hard but keep firing at the same time. Now, the Russians are also Soviets, I should say. Well, actually, no, kind of. Some of them are Russian and some of them are Soviet. Some of them are actually Imperial Russian Navy and others are Soviet Navy. They have the rate of fire. In fact, they nearly have the rate of fire of the Americans in some cases, but they do not have the turret traverse. So, tackling on the cruisers is a little bit... destroyers is a little bit harder, but you can still do it. So they're being lit up rather badly there by the enemy carrier's planes, but they do eventually manage to cap, and between all three of these guys, and it's a Farragut and a Gremiashi, so both pretty good rate of fire, and in the case of the Farragut, very rapidly turning guns as well. They are just pecking away at this Kovachi with their HE shells. And that's going to be the flavour of the Soviet destroyers as well as the American ones, except the Soviet destroyers from, well, technically tier 5 and upwards, but from tier 5 to tier 8 you really need the captain skills, and then tier 9 and tier 10 you can do it with modules. It is, you can just sit and fire from stealth. And you can do that with the Gremiashi. I mean, you will be able to do that with the Gnevny as well, but yeah, you need the captain skills, and not many people are going to have the relevant captain skills at the lower tiers. But at the higher tiers, yeah, I can see a lot of people getting annoyed about the Soviet destroyers once they are in the game. So meanwhile, as we can see on the minimap, there is an Aoba who's just decided to wander into a cluster of allied ships, and I don't know why. In fact, he's basically going on a suicide charge against this New York. Not really a wise move. He's basically throwing his ship away, and throwing your ship away in domination mode is particularly hurtful to your team because you're giving the enemy team points as well. You're not only taking your guns out of the game, but you're actually helping the enemy team and costing your own team points. So, I don't know. I mean, he looks like he's trying to charge one of these battleships, and if he gets torps out, then I suppose it'll be an unequal trade. The battleship is worth more points than a cruiser, but still, I don't know what this guy was thinking. He's just kind of wandered into the wrong neighbourhood, and yeah, Yachty still attracting some fire there, but dodging rather nicely. So yeah, I mean, this guy's just getting whittled away, but not fast enough, and he is basically within point blank range of this New York, and there you can see the torpedoes in the water. I don't know, he literally just, that was a suicide charge, it absolutely was. So the New York gets blown out of the water, but this Aoba is very shortly to follow. And he's on fire always, still Friday. Is that a phrase? That should be a phrase. I don't think it makes any sense, but whatever. And Yachty actually attempts to put his own torps out, but the guy is about to burn out entirely, and there he goes. So we've got 2/3 of the cap points, and we can see a Minikaze around the C point, so Yachty decides to go destroyer hunting and actually take the C point at the same time. And actually, the American destroyers, I think that is one of their specialities, is hunting other destroyers. They've got fairly good camo, so you can sneak up on them. Not as good as the Japanese generally, but the concealment rating is good enough, and it's going to beat the Soviet destroyers in most, if not all cases. And when the destroyer you're firing at, even though it's a higher tier than you, just decides to sit still in the water, well, not quite still, but, you know, still enough. He's killed his speed hard there. You know, that just makes life easy. And yeah, he's going to put torpedoes out, but Yachty knows this. He's keeping his bow towards this guy. He's not going to turn and give this guy a broadside. And there's the torps out, and he just nicely squishes through that gap there. And this guy is just now toast. I really don't know what he was thinking. So there's Yachty's first kill. He's also going to start capping this point, and that will give them all 3 cap points. And although they're very even on ships, the enemy team are badly losing out right now because they don't have any of the cap points, and that's what domination mode is all about. Now, this is an older replay because they've actually changed it so that I think either 5.0 or 5.01 having control of all 3 cap points in domination mode, or just having control of all cap points in domination mode, basically results in a win. And I think they've essentially, they seem to have done away with it all now kind of, they've changed domination mode so that it kind of functions essentially as the regular mode, and the regular mode isn't even there anymore. So calling it domination mode these days, it isn't even really that anymore. It's just the regular game mode. Winning all the cap points, regardless of how many there are, will win you the game. So it's even more important to at least keep control of one. But this was a slightly older version of the game, and as you can see, well, they are losing ships, but the enemy team's also losing ships, and all the while they're getting points from holding all of these cap circles. So unless the enemy team wipes out this team, they're not going to win. They have to start capping. So these two Aobas are, and there we go, getting very close to each other. Ours gets the drop with the torpedoes first, but does take at least one hit in return. But he's still alive, he's still in the water, but still, that was a big chunk of hit points he probably could have used. There's also a Myogi there who looks like he is trying to go for the deep point. There's an allied Wyoming coming down from the north, and this might be a very good opportunity to get close enough to use torpedoes. You have to be a bit sneaky with the American destroyers, especially at the lower tiers trying to get torps, and that's even more true than with the Soviets, because they've just got such shorter ranges. So I think, you know what, if you get good at ambushing people with the Soviets with torpedoes, not that that's what their speciality really is, but if you can do it anyway, then suddenly going to the Americans and having an extra 1.5 kilometers of torpedo range to play with isn't going to feel so bad at all. Anyway, he opens up with his guns because he knows this guy is going to be shooting at another target. And he has to be a little bit careful because although there is a friendly battleship nearby, that friendly battleship's about to be out of gun range, so he actually might become the main target of this Myogi, if Myogi knows what he's doing. However, the Myogi takes a bit of an odd turn in that he actually literally takes a bit of an odd turn and is about to ram himself into the island, just about. And that means, hello, yes, we're definitely within torpedo range, and he is almost literally a sitting duck. Like, this is at a range now where Yachty's torpedoes can't miss. He's actually having to back away. He didn't quite hit the island. I think he was trying to maneuver hard and come about and just completely misjudge the amount of space he had to play with, because he's just hopelessly run aground, and this is just like so many torps in the water now. He is screwed. He is absolutely screwed. And he actually doesn't get a single shot off at Yachty. It's all the secondaries that were doing the damage there. So there we go. That's a devastating strike and his next kill. And we're now down to a very narrow margin indeed in terms of, you know, how much of each team is left. And the Wyoming, to be honest, isn't looking that good because the remaining enemy ships are all very healthy. There's a Cleveland, a Congo, and a Kuma, and they're all pretty high health. And the Wyoming, not so much. In fact, he's rapidly losing his health. So there's not that much, there aren't that many options available for Yachty at this point. He can try and assist this Wyoming, and he does actually open up with guns at the Congo, but the Wyoming's never going to get away from this. He's never going to walk out of this alive. Yachty, on the other hand, would be absolutely insane to try and charge down a Cleveland and a Congo. And there's a Kuma back there as well, don't forget. So that would just be giving the enemy team an extra kill. And looking at the points counter, well, we've still got 2/3 of them. 2 out of 3. We're way ahead in points, and it looks like we're going to lose the Bogue, but even so, they're concentrating on killing ships here. And at least one of them, I mean the Kuma, I don't know what he was doing. He's pretty fast. He could have come across to the sea point, but instead, I don't know, he kind of sits around over there, and that is going to be their undoing. They were not concentrating nearly enough on capping any of these circles, and absolutely that's going to be costly. Meanwhile, Yachty has decided the carrier is all alone, and that's a nice juicy target. In fact, in terms of points, it's worth as much as a battleship, so although they're about to lose their own carrier, if he can take out their carrier, that will even the scores again, and at that point he literally just has to stay alive. Now the carrier knows he's there, the carrier knows exactly what his intentions are, but the carrier is never going to get away. The Bogue is slow. It can barely do 20 knots, and I don't even think it's got any kind of significant like defensive armament. The Japanese carriers are generally better off in that regard. I think some of the Americans have got some defensive guns, but generally speaking, from what I've seen, for the ones I played, which was up to the old tier 6 back when the what was it? I can't even remember. The Independence used to be the tier 5, and then there was something else as the tier 6. Or did they? No, they swapped in the Bogue for something else. I can't even remember. But basically, you would swap your defensive secondaries for extra anti-aircraft with the hull upgrades. Anyway, he's in gun range now. He opens up with HE and actually gets an HE Citadel there. And he's basically just trying to set the guy on fire so that he can't launch planes. But there is at least one bomber squadron incoming right now. He's not having any luck so far though, and I think there's rather a low fire chance on these. Oh, there we go. On these destroyer 127mm destroyer guns, and he does extinguish it, and he does get planes in the air, but Yachty is just about close enough to get torpedoes off, and so he immediately does that. However, unfortunately, takes a bomb hit in the process. So he's got to kill his own fire, and he's now on repair cooldown. So if he gets hit by another bomber squadron, and bombs almost always result in fire, then that's going to be a problem, because he'll be taking damage from the bomb itself, and he'll be set on fire again. And fortunately, that time they all miss. Meanwhile, the torpedoes are about to hit, and he's actually taken about half this guy's health off with fire. In fact, more than half this guy's health off. But the torpedoes are going to finish the job off, and there we go. That's a big extra chunk of points. So basically, that's it. I mean, he's just going to run away now. The only danger would be if the enemy team killed him. They are well ahead of points because the enemy team was not really paying attention to the cap points, and that's basically it. I don't even have score screens to show you, unfortunately, so we're basically going to wrap the video up here because it's just another 30 seconds of Yachty running away. In fact, it's not even that. It's more like, well, actually, no, probably something like that. But yeah, so we've gotten closer to the 20-minute mark on this game, but not quite. But this is why points matter. This is why points are important. So, although this has been a slightly abbreviated episode, I hope you've enjoyed it anyway. And if you have, you can hit the like button. You can leave any comments below. You can subscribe to my channel. And as always, stay tuned for more.